What is buffer time? What is buffer time? Is what buffer time?
Hello there again, Buffer Timers. It's Sunday. We're talking about Discovery, Episode 3, Season 5, Jinaal. For once, I'm not hosting, thankfully. We'll go around and introduce ourselves. I'm Dustin from Best of Trek, Worst of Trek, and I've got them sexy Constitution class curves.
Hi, I'm just a woo-woo asshole.
I'm Scott with much more than 20 opinions, actually, but yeah.
I'm Red if Red Rants. I don't have a funny title today.
All right, just a couple of pieces of kind of huge news before we get into the episode, which Del will lead the discussion on. The easy one is Strange New Worlds, renewed for Season 4. We've got a minimum of 2 more seasons. I don't know if we have anything to say about that, but the big news that saddened pretty much everybody, Lower Decks, 1 more season, and that's it. Which, I mean, 5 seasons is a lot in the streaming age, but, such a good show.
As a Trek fan, I feel entitled to 7 seasons of any good Trek series, so, what the heck?
I think that request is on the waiting line for Enterprise, and once they get a good conclusion, then they might bump you up to the next line.
Man.
Yeah, I know there's that petition going around, and supposedly the petition to get Strange New Worlds was the reason it got greenlit. I don't think I'm going to sign it, and here's why. Think about TNG season 6 and 7. I mean, 6 was still decent. It had some really good episodes, but by the time it got to its 7th season, it had just completely and totally run out of ideas, except for the finale and one other good episode. So, it's almost better to end it on a good note before you've run out of good ideas. I think that was the same way with Game of Thrones. I know everybody's like, it needed another season, and it kind of did. It needed just a little bit more to help round out that ending. But after 9 years, the producers and writers are just burnt out, and I get that. So I'd rather see it go out on a high point than out on a whimper. I don't want it to end the way TOS did. Let's put it that way.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's fair.
I do like that it sounds like they know that it's going to be the final season in advance of writing it as well, as opposed to doing what Discovery had to do, which is a bunch of reshoots when they thought they were going to get more show. So, I'm glad they'll be able to write us a satisfactory conclusion, and I guess I can see how a lot of the character arcs are getting to the point where it makes sense to culminate them, but I don't know. It's just that Michael from the Good Place line is just who I am as a person. There's something so human about making something a little bit worse so you can have more of it.
That's a good point. And a great show.
Oh yeah.
I was going to agree with what Scott had put in the ticker in that Community ended with the rallying cry of 1 more season and a movie or whatever.
It's a movie.
Yeah, and that's my deep down secret hope, is that they'll sum it up not at the end of a season, but we'll either get what they're calling long treks, or maybe even an actual theatrical release.
I'd be really surprised if Lower Decks does not get a proper in theaters movie. I mean, it's already had 2 mini screen movies, and it's a type of thing where with animation, it's way cheaper to do all them big budget things that you want to do over the top in movies than it is to do in live action. So it's something they can do on a decent budget that will probably make at least a decent profit, if not a really good one. All right, is that all we have on the Lower of the Decks? And the strangeness of the new worlds?
I'm just going to suggest, like I've been suggesting to all of my Star Trek friends, if you want this on hard media, do it now.
Yeah.
Because after what happened to Prodigy, you may not
Did he freeze or
once
did
all
he?
of these things.
I mean, I'm almost certain we did get the
Was
discs
he?
for Prodigy Season 1, and I'm almost certain we'll get like a boxed set when it's done.
Nah.
Hope so anyway.
That's-
Same thing, like
Yeah.
I'm really looking forward to getting the box set. Like I've been waiting for years. It's like, yep, all right, there's a whole bunch of things that I've got to spend money on to get the Blu-rays soon.
Yeah. Was it also this week there's the news about the prequel?
Oh
Yeah,
yeah,
I
that
was-
it's like it is 100%
Sorry, the
confirmed.
origin story.
Yeah,
It-
that
it-
we're gonna get something that's set
Yay.
before the Kelvin movies, which means it's in the Prime universe in
yeah,
theory.
and it's supposedly from what I've heard, but don't go out and say that this is definitely canon. That it's going to be a Robert April movie.
Okay,
Oh.
all right. I mean that I can see that. That makes sense.
He's a fun character, and I care because it's Star Trek. But honestly, I
Right.
also don't care. I'm so tired of prequels. Jesus, can they please just do something in the future? It's a future show. Why are they doing everything in the past and the future? It's so weird.
With so many
Future
timelines explored now, though, what does prequel even mean? I mean, everything now will be a prequel to Discovery. So
That's fine. 800 years, there's so much freedom to like fuck around. Like so much. We know so little about like the immediate pre-burn Federation, right? Like that's fine with me. I'm fine with anything in the 32nd century too. I'm just very tired of anything like pre-TOS, pre-TNG, pre-anything.
unless we get an Enterprise movie,
Yeah,
I even 20 years later,
Okay, yeah, I
would
want
still
that.
accept an Enterprise movie.
That is the one prequel I actively want.
They got done dirty. That was a show that finally, like, it took them all those seasons to get good, and just when they hit their high point and were hitting their stride, they got cut.
I'm going to share the other thing I learned from the same source that I learned about Robert April. No, I'm trying to remember what it was. That Legacy is still somewhere in
Yeah, okay.
pre-production, like
Okay.
hanging around, and I'm like, that's when I started going. I don't know
I'll
if
buy
I believe this guy.
Right.
Because
But
literally
yeah.
everything else that's been rumored and come through has said, like, it's just they're hesitating so hard on it. I don't see
I think
nobody
the other thing
involved
was
with it has moved.
is that I guess Skydance is a production company that is making a play to get the Star Trek franchises. And so some of these calls are already being made by Skydance. Like, I'll take
Yeah, that's the
SNW,
rumor.
but I don't want Lower Decks. Like, there's a theory that these decisions are not being made by Paramount, but by the people who are about to make an offer for all the Star Trek properties.
Hmm.
I
That
don't
is
know.
interesting, and I don't know how I feel about that if true.
Yeah, I mean, when it comes right down to it, Lower Decks, it's not a show that's bringing in new viewers. It's a show that satiates us, the old viewers that are already there. We love it, but it's not bringing in the new views, which is what everything's about that when it comes to the streaming services. Got to get more viewers every quarter.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I think it helps a
I
little bit
want
with word of mouth. Like I mentioned earlier, I was getting my tattoo touched up yesterday. I was talking with the artist. We talked about Star Trek because he is, what do you say, like halfway right now through season 2 of Strange New Worlds, asking me what else he should be watching in that area. Like, well, if you like the earlier stuff, there's Enterprise. If you want to understand those old scientists, which he hasn't watched yet, you got to watch Lower Decks. I don't know why he was so specific on a certain era, but I mean, these people are watching.
Speaking of eras, and we were just talking about, like, kind of tired of the prequel shows and stuff. I think most of us have always wanted a Lost era show or movie or something, and we're going to get some of that with the Section 31 long track here. But the more I think about it, like, what we do know about the era is that really nothing happens. It's just an era of, like, the Federation grows and not a ton happens. They get into a couple of small border wars, and okay. You know, if all we did was just go from planet to planet every week and it went smoothly and there's no, you know what I mean? Like it seems like what we know of the era is that that's pretty much it. It's not that there is like something to overcome week on week going
I'm
to
wondering
new
if that's why
worlds.
they set the Section 31 movie in that time period to be like, yeah, above the, on the deck of the ship, everything looks okay, but now you're going to get to see what's happening, down in the engine room.
Fair point.
Hmm.
Right.
Yeah, I don't know what that means either, Norman. I guess it's just supposedly this ties into the Kelvin universe. So it's the origin of that, but must be told in the Prime universe. So whatever.
I don't know.
All right, have we talked this thing to death?
Yes.
I suppose.
All right, then Dell, please take us into some Jinaal.
I have pronounced this name so many times that I wrote it down phonetically so I would remember that his name is Jinaal. I'm going to just start with the most broad question, and I think that is, was Wilson Cruz's portrayal of Jinaal good? Did he differentiate the two characters enough?
Yes, very
Oh,
much so. And
totally.
what I even got thinking about was similar to this, the time that Riker got a symbiont for just a minute. And granted, that's like at the very beginning of the trill, but
When they look pretty different.
it just felt like Riker with some slightly different mannerisms. It didn't feel like a whole new character. And granted, that was like a true joining, so it was like part Riker, part the symbiont. But
Yeah.
here, where it's just pretty much the Jinaal personality taking over for Culber, it really did feel like a different character. Wilson Cruz plays Culber really like downtoned and straight. And this guy, like, I could tell that it was like a completely different character. And if I'd heard this as a radio play, I don't think I'd realize that it was the same actor.
Yeah, his
I was
voice
actually
was
pretty
definitely
suspect
really
of him the whole
different.
time.
I
There's just something about Jinaal that's
okay.
suspicious in the beginning. It's like, oh no, we can't beam there. We have to walk, and I just want to go. I just want to walk this whole way. Like, are you setting up some like kind of double cross? Do you have like some way you're gonna like survive in Culber's
Yeah.
body? And it's great that he didn't, but the fact that that's like so opposite of Culber is just a great performance.
I thought it was funny how like pleased he seemed at how ripped Culber is. He's like, "Ooh, this guy works out."
Yeah.
And the thing is, Wilson Cruz is very buff, so I'm sure that maybe he had some influence over that line.
Yeah, that dude works out a ton.
Yes. So I'm thinking along those lines. Do you think this test was fair?
Considering the technology that we're dealing with, yeah, I think so.
I guess.
suppose.
I don't know. I feel like if you have them angering a mama bear, basically, like, yeah, maybe they'll figure it out. Maybe the mama bear will maul them to death before they have a second to really puzzle that out.
Right?
My only thing is that either these creatures are like super long lived, or like really 1,000 years later, and they're still coming back to the same spot, to breed. Which, I mean, I get it. There's like generational spots where different things get born for a lot of different races and stuff. But
if this were Earth, that place would have been bulldozed and turned into a parking lot.
Right.
Like,
Hey,
sometime
maybe
in
they
a
still are
1,000
better
years.
at environmental resource management. I mean, we still have animals that like come back to the same spot generationally. Like, I don't know, sea turtles and
True.
stuff have probably been doing that hundreds of years. Salmon. So I buy it. I mean, I just assume Trilla like sucks less than we do.
So what did you guys think of the monsters? Like their appearance, both as in like they have the weird cloaking, invisible cloak technology, because that's how they explain the invisible cloak in Harry Potter. that it just reflects light in such a way that you become invisible. So I was like, oh, they all have just, magic cloaks. So what did you think of the monster design and thought and feeling about it?
The CGI was like it looked good in that it was like high quality CGI, but it also very, very, very much looked like CGI. And I understand they probably didn't have the budget or like time or resources to like do something like this practical. But I admit I did kind of I was very apathetic to how they looked. They looked kind of like cool and crustacean-y, but like just very, very fake to me. Like I was very, very aware they were like running around and there's like a green screen or something there.
Yeah, and their stingers or barbs or whatever almost looked mechanical, like it was something that was shot from a machine, which threw me off a little bit.
I thought it was interesting because it reminded me very much of the Transforms if you just put some wings on them and gave them different abilities. But it does remind me a lot. Maybe it's just the same graphic style and that the person who made the Transforms also made the tardigrade, which it also reminded me of.
Yeah, it definitely resembles the tardigrade.
And so I was like, maybe they just opened a file and said, how can we make this different? Wings and invisibility. Yes, invisibility. Like, I don't know.
Invisibility's perfect. That means we have to animate less.
Exactly.
I thought it was a take off of from last season on that planet that Tilly and the cadets crashed on, and then they're dealing with some CGI critters. And I had the same problem with those. Like, yeah, it's serviceable as a high quality model, but it's not overall. It's not great either. It seems like somebody didn't take a ton of time and just threw some flesh together in a 3D art program and let it go. It's okay.
Do you think on another series you'd remember the name of this monster? Because I'm betting none of you do.
Nope, I
began with
I
an
don't.
I.
No idea.
I even tried to make a
right?
point.
Is this something?
It is,
Okay.
but it's I just had it. I had it. It ends in rock.
Is a rock, right?
I think that's it. But yeah, I noticed when I was cleaning up the notes today, I'm like, I don't know what they were called. And so I think that also shows the impact that like they're supposed to invest in this, but I don't think if you asked Michael and Book, they would know the name of that animal. Like it just was not, it was brought up, but it wasn't really given enough of a personality. Like if this showed up 2 episodes from now, we'd be like, what's this creature?
Yeah.
Like it will be forgotten and gone.
It's that thing from Trill.
I feel like it also felt like a very manufactured conflict to just add some action to the episode where there really just wasn't any, which I get, but I feel like if they wanted to do that, they could have, spent a little more time making us like care about the Isarok at all.
Yeah, I mean they at least did try to make it's not nothing because there is like a Star Trek classic point there, like, oh well, how do you treat these races? Was it handled the super best? No, but at least there's something there. I wouldn't call it nothing.
Yeah, it just felt a little bit rushed and like normally I feel like when we have an episode where there's a creature and they initially misunderstand it and then they like learn more about the creature and go, oh, our bad, basically, like that's the episode. And here, like it wasn't the episode, it was like a, like 10-minute very like truncated little like plot point in the episode so that there's something for Burnham and Book to run away from, basically.
True.
Yeah.
Needs to get their little awkward moment.
Do you think this Trill experience is going to change Colbert in any substantial ways going forward?
I've been wondering that since I was worried about Jinaal's intentions. Like, is he going to leave some part of him behind or something?
I feel like that would be a little bit more interesting than
He's just chilling.
A lot of what we've gotten so far, so I kind of doubt that it's going to have much long-term impact on him. I mean, it honestly feels like coming back from the dead had less of a long-term impact than it should have.
Yeah, Norman's got a good point there, and like
point.
Curzon almost became Odo.
Okay, I'm gonna ask one more question, two more questions about this particular plot line, and then I'm gonna move to some of the other stuff.
Please.
So the first question I'm gonna ask: is there any way that Michael and Book could have come to the same conclusion if Book didn't have empathic abilities?
If it was something as simple as, not having a phaser in your hand and showing that you're not a threat, maybe, but it probably would have been a lot harder.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, if anybody was going to come to that conclusion, I think it would have been Burnham.
Yeah.
She's come to those like realizations before, and as she pointed, I love that they actually finally came back to the fact that she's a xenoanthropologist. We haven't talked about that since season 1.
That's a great point.
Yeah, they've
So,
always just
that
called
was
her
kinda
a
cool.
scientist.
Mm-hmm.
One last question. I didn't do a lot of questions about the Adira Gray stuff. If we can go back to it at the end, if you want to talk about it separately. But I'll ask this question now. What is the device that you think Maul put on Adira? Do you think it's a tracker?
Seeing
There's the most
elsewhere-
obvious answer, but
yeah,
I think
and
so.
that's going to be easily the low point for me.
I would rather it much be some sort of communication device, like some sort of spy ear, where that not only can they follow them, but they will know what conversations Adira finds herself in. That would be exciting, or themselves in. But that would be exciting to me if Maul and Locke now had a straight communication line to overhear what's happening on Discovery.
Did anybody besides me miss this in your first watch?
I totally missed it.
No.
I didn't even catch it my second watch.
Sarah didn't watch
I
it till
didn't
this
get it
morning?
till I went to get these screenshots. I was like, oh, that's why they did the little peace be with you handshake.
Yeah.
It's so
Subtle.
small and so quick. I just totally missed it.
But I love the idea of like some sort of surveillance equipment being made out of programmable matter, so it can just soak itself into Adira's uniform and be just a practically microscopic layer of whatever this surveillance thing that we think it is.
I just assume it cloaked, but maybe that's a good
I
theory,
think
too.
it's out of programmable matter.
I guess
Okay.
my only thing with that is I just assumed that they regularly like recycle their uniforms and get new ones.
Yeah, right?
Do they not? Are they just wearing the same uniforms day in and day out? Like,
I mean,
For
think about it this
story-
way. It's probably not as often, because unless you're doing a lot of away missions, the ship itself is pretty sterile and clean.
yeah, that's
So, I
true.
mean, you're wearing underclothes, so you're not getting like a super lot of sweat and things through it. So you probably get a good week out of it, I would imagine.
I'm gonna bring it up because Norman brought it up, or understand Norman brought it up too. This was a question I asked. How come Trill is so absolutely certain that they have a great security system that's going to protect Trill, and yet there's Maul in the deep
Not even
darkest,
disguised.
right? And in this, like when we first went to the pools, it was this huge thing to allow humans in there at all. So now, and we know that she may not be human, but you get my drift. This idea that like, oh, they told them evil's coming, and Trill's like, we got it, and they're like, they might be coming soon. We can handle it. Can we beam down? We're gonna test you first, but then Maul just can show up in the most sacred of areas with no checks or balances involved.
Yep.
Yeah, they told us in episode 2 that she's definitely human. And it's even more confusing because we've seen like Starfleet crew disguise themselves all the time.
Oh yeah.
All the time to look like different alien species. And you could still have the reveal of her like leaving and then like beaming back to the ship and taking the disguise off or something. Like, why is she just there?
Yeah, it didn't make any sense to me.
It's not even that. Like, they made it back to Lyric, somehow figured out, that there was a fifth line of this poem, despite the fact that when Michael and Saru were there, they covered the thing back up, so they just somehow knew how to look for it. Made it to Trill, where the people who are looking for them are, and Maul gets down onto the planet into disguise and in the perfect position to, I'm still guessing, put a tracker on Adira. Because how else are they going to be able to keep up with what's going on in this treasure hunt?
Yeah, especially because now they're now another piece behind.
So I'm thinking, and I don't know these numbers, and they may be invented. How
Girls on
long would it take to get 2 Beta Z to Trill? Because like the fake, the fourth points to Beta Z, so we assume that's where they went. So they have to go to Beta Z, find out somehow that there's nothing there, get to Trill, and then find a way to infiltrate the most sacred sect on Trill.
It does check out because don't forget that Discovery went back to HQ for a while and did some stuff there before they went back out to Trill. So some
You're
time's
right.
passed.
All right, I thought it was all like.
I mean, granted, they've got the
Lyric
jump
really
drive,
fast,
but
though.
something. Go ahead.
Go ahead. Oh, I was just gonna say because we saw Tilly like find out, like they got the alert and they're like, oh, they're on Lyric, and then like 5 minutes later they're at Trill.
Well, I mean, I'm sure that was just some kind of decoy that they said. Just like, they sent out like 20 decoys in the beginning, and that's what roped Book into this thing to figure it all out. They're crafty and shit. What I was going to say, though, is something that I realized about Trill in this, watching this. It's a lot like Risa, in that Risa has this thing that it's the pleasure planet, but every time we go there, nobody has a good time.
It's true.
Here, every time you go to Trill, somebody gives the main characters the runaround in some way, shape, or form. When Cisco brought Dax there, like, they were actually accepted, but they were getting the runaround and getting played. And they were, like, trying to hide what was really going on with Jadzia. And then the first time we came here in Disco, they were like, oh, no, we can't help you. And by the way, we're going to take the symbiont out of Adira and let them die and whatever. And then, like, all that happened. And this one, too, it's like, oh, you can't beam down. Not till you answer this question. There's always a runaround every time you go to Trill.
But Maul doesn't get any of that. She just shows up.
Yeah.
All right. I'm going to start redirecting us toward Raynor and his lovely reception upon the ship. I'm finding it really hard not to coin him with another one of those Delism names like Captain Bag of Dicks or Lieutenant Shifty, but I know somehow if I do it now, I'm going to get poked in the side later and he's going to become like this darling sweetheart. So as of right now, how do you feel about Raynor's command style?
I don't quite understand how he made it to the captain, if I'm being honest. Like, he's so just like rude and like my way or the highway, and he just doesn't, oh my god, doesn't seem very interested in like connecting with people. I did love watching like Tilly like dress him down after that just disastrous like crew meetings. And yeah, she had a great point where it's like, dude, you are fresh off of a demotion. Like, it is a privilege that you are here. What the fuck are you doing? Like, he just, I'm sure it's going to be like a Shaw thing where like, as the more we get to know him, like, and I like him because the actor is so charismatic. He makes him like likable despite being an asshole. But like, I think eventually we'll find out there's more to him and that he's got like, a warm, squishy inside. And we saw that a little bit. But like, yeah, I like him despite him being objectively like a bad commander.
This is true. He's quite likable.
I would like to point something out so that if I'm right, we will have documentation of that I had this thought. I'm really concerned that do we know if he's Vulcan Romulan? Like, he's got the ears. Like, is he Vulcan Romulan or something else?
No, he's something else. God, I can't remember the name of the race. But
He
he
showed
saw
up
him
in
in DS9.
But
yeah.
He keeps trying to use human idioms, but he uses them perfectly.
Fair point.
Now, his excuse in the episode is because, well, I'm serving under a human captain, so I should know these things. But he does it enough that it stuck out to me. Like, if this was just a one-off answer, like, oh, they wrote that line, well, it's because I've studied human idioms. But he drops it a couple times.
He's this race. Kelleran.
Yes.
The episode, the Armageddon game, where O'Brien and Bashir go and destroy the Harvesters, which were their like
Yeah.
um,
It's how I know that coffee has
bioweapons.
vegetable oil in it.
I just called them the Who's down in Whoville, and I'm so glad they got better hair over 800 years.
Yeah. But it just seems a little forced in the script that he mentions like 3 times. Like, oh, yes, I know human idioms because I'm here. I don't know.
I
It just seems
like it. 'cause
I
he's
still don't know what a
so
red
pleased
herring
with
is
himself.
either.
Really?
like you don't know what it is in concept.
Oh, no,
or-
I meant I don't.
Term?
Why do we call it that? What it doesn't make any sense. I
because
they're
herrings
saying-
aren't red. Herrings cheat you because they're
Right.
not red. So you'll pick up a fish that looks exactly like a herring, except it's red, and then you know it's a different breed, so you throw it back.
Okay.
I think he goes
So
back
it's
to
a-
Fox.
A red
But
fish
alright.
that looks like a herring but is not.
Sure.
Sorry.
I'm still confused.
No, I think it has to do with fox hunting because back in the day when you're training a hound dog to pick up a scent, their trainers would like take herring, which I guess has a particularly strong smell, and drag it across a dog's trail to try and confuse, or the fox's trail to try and confuse the hounds.
I googled it.
Mm.
Scott is
That
right.
makes more sense. That makes
I've heard
way
the
more
other.
sense.
I've heard it the other way too. I'm not saying I'm right, but I'm just saying that's a rumor I heard. I don't present it as my own information.
Yeah, I mean, I've always got what people were trying to say when they use it, but I've never understood like the meaning of that originally. So that's pretty cool. Thanks, Scott.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. After not knowing even the names of the entire bridge crew, much less the lower deckers, what did we learn about some of the officers that reported to Rayner?
Reese likes ships. Jet wanted
Constitution
chips.
class. Yeah. I love that they called back to her like when they
Yeah.
came to the future and she's like, I'm hungry. Oh, I'm thirsty. And they just kept breaking her side. That God, I love Tig Notaro. They're like, I want a low budget sitcom based on her
yeah.
in Star Trek. That's the next show.
Please give it to us, Paramount.
I loved learning information about bridge crew we've never seen before. I want this Tango Master to develop into, even if it's like a side plot in one episode, we need some reason that we have to call upon the Tango Master and have them come out and just be full Monopoly.
You know, for all that's been one of the biggest criticisms from like all the critics, us and everybody else for years, that like, all right, we've got all these characters and we don't know anything about them. Though I do find it interesting that there's only like Reese and Linus, which are characters that we've really known for a long time in there, and then it's all these other, it's like it's the beta shifters, like they're the alpha shift that we didn't know anything about, and now we've got our lower deckers beta shifters.
And we know Linus has been a parent.
Yeah.
That was cool. I
Three
liked that a
clutches.
lot.
Yeah, that was adorable. I liked that. I liked how,
Secretly,
like, pleased he was
Linus is one of
too.
my favorite characters in the whole show. I think it's like Reno, Linus, Adira for obvious reasons, and like and then maybe Tilly, and then everybody else. But like Linus is there purely for a comedic breath. Like he's not. I don't think they're ever going to throw a serious plot in where it's like, we need to find Linus's stepbrothers because they have the answer we're looking. I don't think that's ever going to happen.
I
But,
would love a filler episode with Linus, though.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe a short trek without like snot involved. Anyway, but yeah, I just thought like it was interesting who they chose as characters to go in and report. And however idiotic and stupid and mean it was, I loved the interaction between Rayner and Stamets.
Yeah.
Where Stamets is like, this thing could solve everything we know. But we don't know how. And Rayner's like, okay, get the fuck out. Like, you're done.
That was your 20 words.
Yeah. And I even sat down for funsies and tried to come up, like, if I had to do that, what 20 words I would use. And I know it would be like, I, like. Like, I would not be able to shoot something like off the top of my head in the amount of time he's given these, officers to do.
I would stare blankly and he would shame me out of the room. I would suddenly remember nothing about myself at all.
Along those lines, how do we feel about our neutered Tribble?
Story. It's new.
Just fine. That's great.
We've seen
What Edward stood for, man.
We've seen a Tribble running around Discovery before, right?
Yep. Last season. And now we know where it came from.
Now we know that he's a pet. But I'm like, if they're born pregnant, is it like they have to kind of remove the reproductive system? I don't know.
Tribortion.
I know. I didn't want to go in that word because it's very controversial right now. But yes, that's what I was thinking. Is like, if they get like, if they get a hysterectomy while they're pregnant.
Jeez.
You put some thought into this.
Sorry. I think about weird things.
More than the writers did.
I know.
I really didn't think we were going to be talking Tribble eugenics today.
I know. So, with that, I'm gonna go back. I'm gonna go to the Trina and Saru, which only has a couple of questions, and then we have some meta questions that we might want to consider. So, the first question about Trina and Saru is, what did you think about given the aide trying to sideline their marriage for political reasons?
Not only can he go to hell, I'm pretty sure he might be a Vulcan purist.
All
right.
I agree.
Yeah, I thought he was a bit of a rat bastard, and I really like the way Saru initially totally biffs it and then realizes what he did wrong and gives a very, very good apology. Saru's just the best, and I'm glad they didn't make that into a whole big conflict thing. It was just a little hiccup.
What do you think the percentage chance is that announcement's going to go out when Trina wants it to go out?
Yeah, probably 100%.
You think it is?
Yeah.
You don't think Duvan is not going to go to the rest of her staff and say, "Oh, Trina said no thanks, not yet." That's what I'm, because he does come across as skeevy, and so I think he might pull something like that.
Being Vulcan, it's so hard to tell. My first instinct was, oh, maybe he is part of it, but at the same time, this is also how just any Vulcan that was part of her staff, looking out for her, probably would act, whether he was part of it or not. So it's hard to say. I just want to say one more thing about this.
Sure.
Why did they use the personal transporter to literally go up one level above them? Wow, that's a waste of energy. Holy shit. Some stairs, anything? That's it.
Yeah. You couldn't even have a breakout room that you could just walk to? That you had to go upstairs and out of your way?
I think I was questioning that in the beginning, the whole personal transporter thing when Adira was asked to report from engineering to the bridge, and she's like, okay.
And yet if they need a medical officer, then they have to hail the medical officer and then bring them to sickbay. We very rarely, only on away missions, I think, do we see someone who is injured, personal transported to sickbay.
True.
I have another question. I didn't write it, but I think it's hilarious, so I'm going to ask it, which is, do you think Saru and Trina could ever have a cool baby who's both Romulan, Vulcan, and Kelpian? And what would that look like? I love the question.
I want it. I don't know how that would happen or what it would look like, but I want it. I bet it would be very cute.
Pointed ears and hooves.
It kind of made me think, except for the coloring, and I don't know names to episodes, so you're gonna have to work with me. Trip and Neelix go to a planet. They find a dinosaur dragon egg.
Oh, Paris and Neelix. But yeah. I
Oh,
know
Paris and
what you mean.
Neelix,
I know
right?
I think
Okay.
it's parturition.
Yeah, the bird baby.
It's kind of what it reminded me of.
But with like Saru's mouth flaps instead of a beak.
Yes.
Parturition.
Thank you.
Right.
But yeah, that's what I thought of when I read the question, was this idea of like, yeah,
Just orange, but with Vulcan ears and mouth flaps.
yeah.
Yeah, I don't think you're far off,
I
actually.
think you're right.
And I was thinking more the baby than the adult, so it still had sort of that innocent kind of wide-eyed look.
Oh, the baby reminded me like of the dinosaurs puppets from the show
Yeah.
Dinosaurs, but the mother
Yeah.
seemed more like just a normal Trek alien.
Or like
Yeah.
Felix. I wonder if it would have hair. Like just add a bowl cut onto that.
What I was thinking was Spock from The Cage, where they had to like dial him back because they
Yes.
got comments that he looked too much like the devil. So you add like fucking hooves and like long ears and the like green make. You got the devil.
Yeah, so like, okay, she's gonna give birth to
El Diablo.
Baphomet. She's gonna give birth to Baphomet. Like, I can see it now. But I had to ask that question. I swear I didn't write it though. So I'm gonna jump down to some meta questions and then
Can I ask one?
please.
Just an observation more than a question.
Sure.
Have you noticed that most all of the scenes between these two this season, or even last season, happen in front of a portal to space, a window? I don't know what the framing decision or choice is here. I don't know if they're trying to tell us something or if it just works good as a framing.
So I didn't notice the
Spot
portal
on the station, right? In front of some kind of window.
Yeah. I was always wondering if it's the idea that they rarely get time in private because of their duties. And so they have these like really intimate conversations in a hallway.
The other thing, like, I don't know if they're trying to tell us something through this, but most relationships in Trek end one of two ways. Either they end up getting married, or this is going to end very badly. Like, Breen are going to come and, get with the Vulcan purists and take her ass out before the end of the season.
I think they're going to have a happy ending.
I hope so.
They better. I'm going to be pissed if they don't.
But don't be surprised.
Yeah.
Saru deserves happiness. They need it. He's been a good boy. He's been through so much.
He
deserves to get married and have lots of very measured conversations with this lady.
I'd buy that.
I believe that there are three relationships here. So we have three different outcomes. So we have Adira and Gray, who could decide that they are lifelong lovers and should be together forever. They could stay broken up forever but still be friends, or something horrible like one of them gets eaten by a horrible alien.
One of them already died and came back, so they better not do that again.
So the second relationship we have is Book and Burnham. And that's going to be either they get married and go off into the sunset together, or they don't go together anywhere. Like, I don't think there's a middle option for them.
I think they're going to get back together. Book's pining so hard.
Yeah.
So much. Just constantly.
And then Trina and Saru is the third relationship. So this is why I'm putting happy ending on them. I can see the 80,000 different ways it could explode. But for my own personal, right now feelings, I'm going to say I want that one to be the most successful. So, because I love the way they communicate. Like, Saru is still allowed to have emotions because he can phrase them thoughtfully. But he can also, on a dime, speak like a Vulcan.
That's true. Just deserves it.
Yeah.
The breakup didn't anger me. It did seem like it was the natural conclusion to this. I mean, Gray's taking not a vow of celibacy, but he's doing the most boring job in the universe, as the Cisco once put it.
I think Gray being turned from a living organism into a synth and using that as a chance to redesign their gender, I think that is worth it, even if Gray gets dumped in Trill anyway. Just the idea that a time will come where like sex changes or gender reassignment surgery, or even just having cosmetic surgery like facial feminization surgery is like no big deal. And it happens all the time.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't think they were a waste of representation. I'm hoping that with the tracker going on Adira, that means that she's going to have more plot. Because I was really worried. I think it's a small chance we see Gray again. But I definitely think Adira is still going to be at least in the mix on Discovery. But I'm wondering if they bring her to any sort of conclusion. I think it could either be that they get back together or they die. Like, I don't see them going off into the far future, a happy single person. I also don't think it demotes maturity. It really just demotes, we're not having physical intimacy and I don't miss it, I think is really what the whole conversation was about.
I would like to do something that is not maturity. So in this picture, if you look on the exact middle, on the opposite side from where they are, on the right side,
It is
tell me that
It's
phallic-shaped Brock does not remind you of like that time Kirk just held a dick in his hand as a rock.
He did that.
It very phallic.
Yeah.
Just saying.
Iconic set design, truly.
Yeah. So I have a couple of more broad-based questions about the show in general. We already kind of talked about one, which is, do you want to have a low-budget sitcom based on Jet Reno? Which my answer is yes, but I've been a Tig Navarro fan for a very long time. I saw their show and they were talking about having cancer, and it was just hilarious. And you don't get to say that often. Does anyone else want a little bit, other than Dustin, does anybody else want a sitcom around Jet Reno?
I need it. I want it so bad now.
Why not?
Or maybe she can somehow end up at Starfleet Academy. That would be good
Ooh,
too.
I would love to see her teach engineering.
sense.
Are you kidding me? That would be so good.
I really would like to see her. She doesn't even have to be a bigger character than she is now. Just there.
I want more of her. She's so funny and just so great. I want more screen time for her.
Are there any other characters that you would want to see like a breakout series from? I know the easiest answer, and I'll give it first, is I'd want to see the year between when Book and Burnham met and when Discovery arrived, like their career years. I could watch that for days.
Yeah.
Yeah, that sounds really good. I would love to see that. I would be down for a Linus series. I want more. He's just so wholesome.
And then there's Linus. He's shedding today. And then there's Linus. He won't go away. He blinks this way and blinks that way. He's Linus.
It's like an 80s Heathcliff.
Oh yes,
cartoon.
absolutely.
That's
an
great.
animated Linus show.
Oh
yeah, no, that makes
would be
that,
so good.
that would be the way to do it.
Okay, I'll get out of my own little head. How would you rate the naming schemes happening on this season? Like people named Mull, Locke, those sorts of things. Do you think they're appropriate, or do you think they're just like looking around the room and going, "Oh, the door's locked, lock"? Like,
Malls are dying. Maul.
yeah. Well, I was thinking that Mull might be related to like the 40s gangster Mulls.
Oh, interesting.
Because it's a young woman, so I could see where that nickname might have just come out. I mean, if they know what stormy weather is 1,000 years from the 32nd century, then it's possible. Oh, Fred.
Yeah, I was just thinking about like how he like actually made a point about and the awk and the la And like,
Yeah.
I still that was a weird scene. I still don't really quite understand why he was going off about that, or if that's just like that's part of his programming.
No.
I was just so excited to see like, okay, I'm not a Star Wars fan, but there's R2D2 and then like their version of B4. Do you know what I mean? At least like there's another very like he's orange
C-3PO?
and white and he rolls around on a ball. I don't know his name.
Oh, yeah, that one.
But like I felt like sort of it was like, oh, we get to see what Data looks like, you know, but in a different characteristic in a different setting. And I was like, because we've only met Data and Lore. I'm B4, but whatever. But B4 is basically Data. But the idea of getting to know another Sunnian android, I really felt like that was a missed opportunity.
This
Yeah,
is
I'm
Data
very
at the
sad
end of a
that
game of
they
telephone.
killed him.
Yes.
If Data is R2D2, Fred is kind of like, and I'm going to be that guy, R5D4, which is the red
Ah.
that people almost bought before it blew up.
Yep. The only reason I even know that is because I had the little figure when I was a kid of R5D4.
Oh,
Yeah.
cute.
And this is the last question we have written down. I can always just come
Perfect.
up with other stuff we can talk about.
No, we're at like a good amount of time because one more and then an out of tens, and I don't know.
Yeah, then we're good.
So,
all right.
do it.
Do you think that the mention of the Zenkethi hint at more ties to Deep Space Nine related plot lines or stories?
I mean, it just seems like this season they're finally trying to tie back a ton of other Trek, which I appreciate. And this is a very underexplored part of Trek. We know that the Federation went to war with them at some point during the 24th century, and that's about all we know. They're governed by an autarch. They don't like the Federation very much, or at least they didn't. So
I think that's why it was interesting that Michael's response to that was like, we're going to have to go through diplomatic channels. And I was like, oh, that's right. They don't get along. Oh, yes, and the Sluggo Cola.
Yeah. Since it's a 404 not found on the Zenkethi, I figured I'll just throw this up there.
Yeah. And also, are all Ferengis bartenders? Is that like what they aspire to be now? Because this is the third Ferengi, I think.
This goddamn show, it's stereotyping Ferengi.
No, I like the Ferengi. They can do so much more with their lives. All right.
But I mean, we do know that the bartenders, it's a choice thing. Like you choose to bartend today, so I mean, just must enjoy it.
On an unrelated note, I do think that my predictions about Kovic's shadiness is further bolstered by this episode because, like, Stamets specifically said, we could use this to bring organisms back to life.
Yeah, I think we're going to learn something really deep and dark about Kovic before this season is over.
I think he's going to try to Jatrell a planet. That's what I think.
If I'm sitting on a conspiracy right now, my big conspiracy is that sorry, I lost my train of thought. I'm like trying to do two things at once. Never mind. I forgot. I can't find it. But I do. Oh, go ahead.
Yeah, I'm still of the opinion that somebody's helping Maul and Locke out, and I would have said Kovic if it wasn't for the first episode where he's like, no, go ahead and kill them if you need to.
I don't care who's on that ship or what happens to them.
I remember the question. Is anyone else getting Genesis Project vibes from this progenitor thing, especially after Stamets like info dumped all that in, like all the stuff about it? Like immediately my antennas went, Genesis. I mean, my partner, who is not a Star Trek fan as nearly as much as I am, heard that and said, is that like the Genesis Project?
Yeah, it's similar.
That's all I had left. So thank you guys, and we'll do a 1 out of 10, and then Dustin will say goodbye.
Well, I was going to actually answer your question.
Go ahead. I'm sorry.
I got more Genesis vibes earlier in the season when they first told us about it. than I
Right.
did, like, now that I understand it more from Stamets. But I would love to find out that, like, there's a scientist named Marcus that was one of the 6 scientists that hid this whole thing. And that would, like, tie it back, and that would be fun.
Yeah.
I don't know how likely that is. I mean, they're just saying that this was going on during the Dominion War, so you're talking about like way
Right.
post TOS. So
we're talking about, like,
And
Carol
it's-
either having other kids or, like, a sibling that had a, just the name, not so much that it's even part of, like, the same direct lineage, but or that helped create Genesis, but part of the same family, just like Soong. Let's throw the Soong name around anytime we want to talk about androids, you know what I mean?
Could it be possible that we end up in a series in which we have Spock's heretofore unknown sister and like David's heretofore like maybe abandoned twin or like stepbrother or his nephew's nephew, like just the idea of having a Kirk related character that didn't exist before and a Spock related character that didn't exist before. Like, I just think that would make me laugh for about an hour.
no, David's nephew's nephew wound up in Arnara with a drug problem.
Yeah.
All right. I guess we can do some out of 10s then. Do you want to start it?
I'll start it.
Yeah, let's go around.
I keep flip-flopping, so I'm probably going to give it a 6. It was not my favorite episode by far, but it had, like, when I was talking to Dustin, I said it felt like it was some really well thought out scenes, but that they didn't really stitch together very well. Like, I think it's partly because of the 10 episode thing, but I'm going to give it a 6. It was passable. There was some really cute, some very like emotional moments, but if you're going to go, if you're going to take a breath, take a breath. Don't like say we're just going to jog more slowly.
It's fair.
Ooh,
Everyone.
Norman.
Yeah. Gannon hated it too.
Yeah, I'm assuming he'd give it just a 1 or a 2 after hearing his write up.
Well, I'm gonna go way out of left field then. I actually give this a 9. Maybe I'm just biased because I do like a good treasure hunt. And it's continuing the whole idea of the treasure hunt, like how the specific clue that led them to Trill wasn't a set of coordinates or anything. It was a spot pattern, on a long dead Trill's face. I mean, that's really creative. I love the fact that Jinaal kind of seemed shady at the beginning, but he turned out to be all right. I don't know so much about the actual hiding place of the piece of the puzzle, but it seems like I don't know, maybe it's the fact that it wasn't marked makes it seem more like, oh, this is just some random spot where anybody could have found it. But then what really killed me was it just too convenient how Maul showed up at the end, and now suddenly, not only are they back in the game, but there's a good chance they're going to know what's going on because Adira is supposedly bugged. So, yeah, 9.
I would probably give it a 7. I liked it. I thought it was a pretty good episode. It had a lot of great moments and, yeah, individually well thought out scenes. I thought it came together okay, but I did kind of get a little bit disinterested with the whole, like, manufactured scary boys conflict. But the stuff with Saru and Trina, like, really did help save it for me. One little thing that I thought was kind of like very silly was when Michael goes to look at the carving and she like runs up to the carving and it's the carving that we've all seen, and then she pulls it up on her screen and she's like, "That's it!" And I'm like, of course that's it. What else would it be? Someone just came and like graffitied an almost identical design on the rock. Like, what? But aside from like weird little things like that, I thought it was a pretty good episode. Definitely on the like higher end of quality for Discovery, I think.
And I'm going to give it an 8 straight up. It's right around as good as the first episode for me. I don't know which one's actually better. And the first one's got more good action and I think more good appeal for a wide audience. And this one's more appealing to just a core Trek audience, but I liked a lot of the pieces between everybody. Oh, I thought, and we've got an average of a 6.91.
Gwyn Grace, you gotta just give us a fake number if you have to make it up. But come on, come play. Give us a number out of 10.
Wow.
Okay, no pressure.
Nope, that's cool.
Yep.
All right. Anybody have any?
There we go.
7.5. There we go.
Nice.
Let's see if that
All right.
changes anything. Do we have any final thoughts?
I think we covered most of what I could think of.
Oh, yeah. It blew my mind for a second, or slipped my mind for a second. But what do you think is going to happen in this next episode? Since they have to wait, not only have to wait to be able to get to the next piece of the puzzle, but it's only the 4th episode out of 10. So, I mean, obviously the pacing is going to take a hit. But what are they going to do for a filler? Because this one's most likely going to be a filler episode of some kind.
I think it's going to be about Trina and Saru.
Could be.
That the announcement goes out and the Vulcan purists go insane. I think that would be a really good, not necessarily filler, but let's just leave Discovery altogether. Let's settle what's going on at the Federation headquarters, and then we can be 12 hours later, and then we can go back to the Discovery, and they could have covered some ground in that time. I think that would be the best idea that I would have.
With Wind Graces, that brings it up to an even 7. That's pretty great for an episode. I
Yeah.
think this might be the most people that have chimed in on rankings ever. My final thought in question is a rumor that's been going around that they've dropped the Breen now, 3 episodes out of 3.
That's true.
That Locke is this
is a Breen.
unknown race. Is he a Breen?
But to be fair, they've also dropped Picard's name 3 times. So we're going to see
Locke
Picard.
could be Picard. He could be he could be an alien playing a Frenchman.
He is a synth, so he could still be around.
Yeah.
No, because they said when they gave him that body he would have a normal human lifespan, even though he was already in his fucking 90s.
Yeah.
Oh, so he only lived to be 200 then.
Yeah, I know. Fucking McCoy ended up in a cyborg mecha suit in one of the books when he was in that same age that we saw him in Encounter at Farpoint.
Yeah.
So. Yeah, I don't know if I believe that he's a Breen, but I think the Breen are going to come into this at some point. There's no way that they name dropped this 3 out of 3 and we don't at least see the Breen. Yeah, I do think it would be interesting to find out what they look like under their helmets, so we'll see.
Unbreen-leavable.
Any other final pieces? All right. Well, thanks, Dell, for hosting this thing today, because I have not felt great this week. And thank you guys for showing up, Scott and Ren, and all of you for tuning in. So, until next Sunday when we have another episode of Discovery, live long